Hello, friends. My name is Nathan, and welcome to an episode of A Reader. I have been so inspired by my fellow readers. These are people that I watch countless hours of videos of online talking about their list of books that they're going to tackle in the new year, books that they really love, books that maybe they're not really connecting with. I have added many of these books to my own personal list, and I have also decided that I want to contribute to this conversation. I have been an avid reader for a very long time, and I have feel like I have something to say, something I can add to the conversation. I read lots of popular books, but I also try to find obscure things that maybe lots of people haven't gotten their hands on. My reading journey began in college. Up to that point, when I first started reading as a young kid, I really fell in love with reading. The bigger the book, the better. In the third grade, I won a competition for most pages read, and that is still a crowning achievement in my life. But I love reading. And when I got into middle school and high school, you know, you start getting assigned books to read, and I think that sort of crushed my love of reading. But when I got into college, I decided I've got to get back into reading. There's a whole world out there that I am not a part of, there are lessons and stories that I am not discovering by not being an avid reader. So I set out with a very simple goal that I was going to try to read 12 books a year, one book every month. I would use an app like Goodreads to sort of track myself and motivate myself, and it worked. And so now, flash forward to almost 2 decades later since I've been out of college, and that is really, really painful to say, but here we are 2 decades later, and I have amassed a pretty intense collection of books. I'm one of those guys that cannot walk by a bookstore without purchasing something. When we get to the end of the year and we're talking like the New York Times list of best books of the year, I'm the sort of person that tracks those lists down, and I make notes and I keep books to buy later. So I thought, why not? Why should a guy like me contribute to the conversation? So every year I take this giant list of unread books. All of it exists on a spreadsheet just to be extra dorky about it. I sort of randomize this list and pick 12 random books that I'm going to read for the next year. I thought for this sort of first video, my first attempt at doing this, I go through the 12 books that I'm going to start the year with. This won't be all that I read throughout the year. I will get to many more titles than this. There will also be many more titles that I listen to on Audible or Libby or Spotify or whatever it might be. But these are the 12 books that are going to start my year. I'm going to give you sort of a quick background on why that book jumped in my collection. But more than anything, I would love to hear from you. Again, as I said in the opening, I have been really inspired by this community of readers, and sort of without a community to wrap myself around here in Seattle, I decided there's a great big world out there of fellow readers, so why not connect online? So without further ado, this is my 2025 reading list. So the first book that I am going to tackle next year is The Bridges of Madison County by Robert James Waller. I haven't seen the movie, and I have not read the book. It's a rather small story, but I am excited about the opportunity to jump into this. I'm also an avid watcher of films, so shortly after I read this book, I'm pretty sure I'm going to jump into the movie too. I love a good adaptation, and if that's the case here, I expect to be pretty excited. Next up is The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. Now, I know the sequel to this book, The Revenge of the Tipping Point, has come out this year. I have read a lot of Malcolm Gladwell books, but this is not one that I have read. I'm particularly interested. I just watched a TED Talk where Malcolm apologized for sort of bringing to popularity the broken window theory, which really ramped up policing across this country. And I'm really interested to get that original story. I'm interested to see how he deals with that in The Revenge of the Tipping Point. But I think Malcolm Gladwell is one of our great writers and thinkers here in North America. So I'm really excited to dive into this book. The third book is The New Analog by Damon Kurkowski. I am an avid collector of vinyl. When I moved to Seattle in 2011, I started a vinyl collection. I've got close to 400 records, but I also am a person who still buys DVDs. I'm a big fan of the Criterion Collection. I also read physical books, and for me, there's something about being able to own it and know I'm going to be able to own it for all of time. So I'm really interested in what this book has to say about the digital lives we've created for ourselves, but also sort of the new analog. Book number 4 is Horizon by Barry Lopez. Back in 2020, I attempted a through hike of the Pacific Crest Trail. COVID sort of ruined that journey for me, but all through 2019, in the lead up to that hike, I spent the whole year reading books about grand journeys. These could be other people that hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, these people that hiked through the Amazon, or attempted a hike of the outback or through the Mongolian desert or whatever it might be. And I am sort of addicted to the genre of, real life people attempting sort of impossible feats. And this book, Horizon by Barry Lopez, absolutely seems like it's going to be that sort of adventure. So I'm really excited to jump into this. All right. Book number 5 is Light in August by William Faulkner. When I was in high school, the movie Orange County came out with Colin Hanks and Jack Black. And that was sort of my first introduction into who this guy, William Faulkner, is. I would later, come to realize that he is considered one of the great American authors. And I have set out really trying to read everything that he has written, and I got really serious about that last year. And this year I'm continuing that journey again. There are 2 books of his in my 12, but I am again really excited to jump into this. There is something about his writing that really connects with me. I also write, and I really connect to his writing because I too try to use very descriptive writing. I love a good long sentence. No one may love a good long sentence more than Faulkner. I also love guys like Ernest Hemingway, but I just don't prescribe to the idea that his sentence needs to be as short as possible. So if you're asking me, between the 2 great American male authors who am I connecting to most often, it is Faulkner, and I'm excited to continue this journey. Alrighty, the next book is Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. It is a novel by Robin Sloan. I have no idea how this book ended up on my list. It was either a New York Times end of the year list, or it maybe have been a NPR end of the year list. But I'm excited about it either way. First of all, the cover is beautiful, and you'll almost always get me with a beautiful cover. I am one who's going to judge a book by its cover, but I'm excited because I often read a lot of nonfiction, and I have been trying to get really serious about reading more fiction and allowing my imagination sort of run wild in the stories written by others. So I'm excited to crack this open and sort of see the world that's being built here. From everything that I've read and heard about this book, it's going to be a great adventure. All right, number 7 for next year is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I am embarrassed to say this, and as someone who grew up in Oklahoma, I'm extra embarrassed to say this. I have never read any Steinbeck. I do have on my list, and it's getting pretty close to being up next to be read, The Grapes of Wrath. That will probably be something that I begin my year with. But I've heard that this is nothing short of a masterpiece. One of those sort of guys that I follow online who is also really starting to jump into the world of reading couldn't say enough great things about this book, so I'm excited to crack it open and see what I think. All right, the next book is What Is Not Yours Is Not Yours by Helen Oyeyemi. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that last name. Please let me know if I am. This, I do believe, was on a New York Times best end of the year list. Again, I'm trying to be intentional about reading more fiction, but I'm also trying to be intentional about reading more female authors and more authors who are people of color. And I love a great collection of short stories, and that's exactly what this seems to be. And everything that I've heard about this is that it's fantastic. So I'm really excited to dive into this next year. All right, the next book is Volume 0, A Spell for Disappearing by Abby Jenny. A couple years ago, my partner got me a subscription to Book of the Month Club, and this was a free little edition that came with the book that I picked, and it is very short, 33 pages, I think. So, this is a quick afternoon to crush this. But I'm excited to, first of all, jump into this. I love this idea of sort of, this looks like something you would self-publish and dive into, but I also love this idea of sort of setting up your story. I am not a big reader of series. It's not something I really do a lot of, but I am excited to jump into this. I've already asked, I shared an Instagram photo of the books that I'm reading, and I've already had someone ask about this and say that they want to read it too. So I am really excited to jump into this and see what kind of world it's building, and then hop into its bigger volume 1. So excited for this one. All right, the next book is The Return of History and the End of Dreams by Robert Kagan. I, like many of you out there, was sort of shocked about the results of the last presidential election here in the US, and I am sort of struggling with how to take those next steps forward. I want to give the next president every opportunity to succeed. I think his success is the country's success, but I am ready, willing to be a force of resistance on day one. If that means protesting, if that means writing to my representatives, if that means continuing to do the work that I do in the nonprofit sector, if it means being a better advocate, I will. And I really want to read the works of other people who are sort of trying to think about America's place in the world and how we see ourselves and how we wrestle with this idea of what is America. So I'm excited to jump into this and see what it has to say and see if it provides any sort of groundwork or a path forward for those of us who are sort of struggling with what to do next. All right, only 2 more to go. Number 11 is The Sound and Fury by William Faulkner. As I told you, there were 2 on this list. I have heard that this is nothing but a masterpiece, and that I am going to enjoy it a lot. So a couple of years ago, I was at a bookstore in North Hollywood, and I bought every Faulkner book that they had on their shelf. So this is an old paperback classic, but I'm so excited to crack the spine and continue this Faulkner journey. It has been enlightening and such a joy thus far. Alrighty, book number 12 is Beatrice and Virgil by Yann Martel. This will be the 12th book that begins my 2025 reading list, and I am very, very excited about this one. Years and years ago, when I sort of began this reading journey and decided to get really serious about it, Life of Pi was one of those first books that I picked up and decided to dive into, and I'm so glad that I did. Life of Pi, to me, is a near perfect book. The movie adaptation also is quite good. They paint a very visually stunning world. It is a world that you want to be in, but not for too long. It is tragic, it is heartbreaking, but it also is so lovely to see someone overcome such challenges and odds in their own life. So I've asked around what's the next book that I should sort of jump to next after Life of Pi. Beatrice and Virgil was the recommendation. So I'm super excited to jump into this one and spend some time in another fictional world, and I'm excited to see where this takes me. All right, friends, thank you for joining me on this journey. I will be back with some thoughts throughout the year on these books, as well as I really want to spend some more time doing essays and reviews and talking about some of the things that I write and spend my time creating. But I also want to sort of, as I said in the beginning, join this chorus of people that are talking about books that matter to them. I love reading. I cannot imagine my life without it. I am stunned when people say that they aren't readers, and I think the reason they're not is they haven't found that great story that hooks you. And I feel so lucky and privileged that I have. So please check back to this channel often. Please drop comments or whatever it might be below. I would love to hear what you're reading in the next year. But whatever it is, I hope it takes you to some fantastic places, and I hope you find exactly what you need. So until next time, be good to each other.